Hello. It is Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. The refs suck again. Stink. Monday Night Football primetime television. Yet again, the refs are the topic of the conversation this morning. That's just the way it's going to be until some changes are made by Mr. Goodell. Cam Newton is potentially going to be a suitor for a trade worth potentially 10 teams that would call, says one anonymous AFC GM who definitely would be one of the people calling for Cam Newton. That's right. Liz Frank came and attacked his foot while Kyle Allen has come in and led an undefeated Carolina Panthers, and Christian McCaffrey has emerged as an MVP candidate. So what do you do with Cam Newton, especially with how good he is, how talented he is, how much attention he will grab? You definitely think about trading him at some point. I have my list of 5 teams that I think he'll fall at. A topic came up in discussion while we were talking about this, and I put a poll to the people. And this has been highly scrutinized, this particular poll. I said, I have my 5 teams, but in discussion, this idea arose. If Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott can't figure it out, if they continue to be bad, if you're Jerry Jones, who would you rather, Dak Prescott or Cam Newton? Now, granted, Cam Newton, you're going to have to pay him, so you're not really getting an advantage from salary cap purposes. You're going to have to pay somebody. But if we're going strictly football-wise, who would you have? The room, I mean, a lot of eyes perked up. They're like, that's a great question. I put it on the internet. Cowboys fans are coming after me hard. They're like, this is not even a question. You are better than this, Pat. It's like, no. Some people have this thought. And I think right now people listening are like, that's a great question. Because Dak Prescott, he had a couple good games. Look, Cam Newton's had a slew of good games. Cam Newton was an MVP candidate at one point. Is he now? I don't know. Going to a new team with a new chip on his shoulder, having to prove himself at a new place, also being on America's team on national television, that is something that Cam Newton relishes. Or could Cam Newton stink? I don't know. Maybe Dak and Kellen figure it out. I'll tell you the poll of the people. We have over 15,000 votes casted already in the poll. That's a pretty good little sample size. We got LeVar Arrington on today at 10:30 to chit-chat about the Redskins, and also him just being one of the biggest freaks to ever exist. He ran a 10.800 in high school. I have no idea what that means, but that sounds like 10.8 that's like 60 yards for me. So he ran he ran an extra 50 yards on top of that. That's insane. He's obviously an all-pro, all-American, everything you could talk about. Talk to him. And then Jeff Garcia joins us in the second hour. Seems like the Bookers caught a little message. It is 10:03. We're going to have an incredible Tuesday. Evan Fox, play some Chase Rice.
It's the perfect occasion for a little vacation from the heart of the nation. Not your medication, 2 hours of magic. Let's give it a go. Ladies and gents, it's the Pat McAfee Show.
Yes, it is Chase Rice. I'm joined by everybody here in Indianapolis,
Indiana!
At Tom McComas, at Nick Moroto, at Tone Diggs with a Z, at Ty Schmidt, at Evan Foxy, at Viva Lazito. Jason McAfee's back there. Gumpy has been deported. It's a real shame for Gumpy. We got some stats on gambling numbers here in Indiana, by the way. I can't wait to chat about that and how this is going to become something that this United States is going to absolutely love that they legalize, just like marijuana in the future. Last night, yet again, in crucial situations, the Foot Locker dudes figured out how to become the topic of the conversation. Granted, incredible game. Matty Stafford came out with a flamethrower. I mean, he was dropping the ball in the bucket. I started questioning everything that I thought about the Packers getting a win last night. I was like, wait a minute. This is what Matt Stafford does. Matt Stafford plays against the Green Bay Packers better than any human probably played against another team. T.Y. Hilton in Houston is a game that you can think about. And then I think Matt Stafford in Green Bay might be, Matthew Stafford. A lot of people tweeted me last night whenever I said Matty Stafford with the flamethrower. Like his name is Matthew. I get it. I'm so sorry, Matthew. Matthew Stafford came out and just dropped the ball in the bucket. Matt Patricia seemed to have that defense figured out as well. They were getting a lot of pressure on old Aaron Rodgers. They were stopping the run. Aaron Jones started to turn the ball over a little bit early there. Pressing. I think he was pressing a little bit, which is going to happen after you have an incredible game for the first time last week. But that was a very, very good football game. And And in the biggest moment of the game, in a drive that is needed for the Green Bay Packers, Trey Flowers gets incredible push on Bakhtiari, who's not only a good beer chugger, noted beer chugger, he is also a good left tackle for Aaron Rodgers. Gets good pressure. Boom, boom, boom. Aaron Rodgers literally goes down in the fetus position, in the fetal position. In a fetal position so he couldn't get hurt because the pressure was everywhere. No. Hands to the face. Trey Flowers is like, no, man, it was not. This is what I'm taught to do. You literally put your hand in the middle of their chest and then you push up. Like, that's the entire goal of a bull rush, I believe. I think that's like actually a technique that is taught. Get your hands on their chest and then rise. Because what an offensive lineman is, his face is hilarious too. They zoomed in on his face. He had no idea. But an offensive lineman's job is to get his hands on you. That's literally what they're trying to do. And a D lineman is just trying to keep their hands off of them at all times. You can do that with a swipe. You can do that with a rip. You can do that with a lot of things, spin move. But in a bull, you are trying to get inside of their hands and drive them. And some people who have incredibly long arms can go with a left straight, like a left jab right to the chest, and then lift because you got good leverage there. Trey Flowers almost had perfect, literally had perfect technique. Bang, umpire throws the flag. Let's extend the drive. Hands to the face, BS call. Then a little bit later, same exact situation, same exact people on a third down. Green Bay Packers need it. Boom, extend the drive. Now the Packers score. Packers win. Lions are wondering, what the hell is going on with our life? The -3.5 for the Packers, by the way, was 2 yards away. Old Cuzzy Williams, I believe it was.
Jamal Williams.
Made an incredibly intelligent play, by the way, in a world that revolves around selfishness, in a world that revolves around flexing and shining and spotlight, to notice that, there's probably a reason they're letting me just run like this and just go ahead and take a squat on the 2 so that Matty Stafford can't get the ball back is so incredibly selfless. It's awesome to watch. It was talked about in team meetings, like, hey, if we're ever in a situation, you just got to go down. But we also understand that there's probably touchdown incentives in your contract. There's probably a lot of things there that business-wise tell you, hey, get as many touchdowns as you can. In his Wikipedia right now, how many touchdowns did he score? It's going to be -1 forever. I don't think that is – I think that should be very much talked about, how Williams did that in week 6 of an NFL season. It's not like it's week 16, week 17, the playoffs where you have to be everything's spiritual. In week 6, this dude decides to pop a squat on the 2-yard line. And every human that had the Packers -3.5, including one speaking into the microphone right now, was like, why are you going to be smart now? Why do we have to have the most selfless football player of all time get the ball right now? Why couldn't this just be basically any other human with the football? Why couldn't that be me with the ball? I get it. I would have been thinking they're letting me score. How much time is left? I got no time. I go right in. Him popping a squat there to allow Mason Crosby, Lambeau leap, by the way. I don't love it. I don't love the Lambeau leap by Mason Crosby. I get it that he got to do a Lambeau leap.
Needed a boost.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was like whenever you got your kid trying to do a touchdown. And granted, I bet he could have made it himself. Didn't want to pop anything, hip, hammies, or anything like that. I didn't love it because you run away from your team, right? So that's a pretty big moment. I think you even saw people trying to corral him. But he had that moment. He's been a Green Bay Packer forever. He's been an incredible Packer. He's probably never got the Lambeau leap. So go and do your thing. But for me, when the Lambeau leap happens with wide receivers and stuff, normally there's people in that corner already, right? So your team's already in that corner. So it doesn't look like you're dodging your team. Because Mason Crosby showed a little quickness there to get out of it. Excuse me. I got to go leap into this thing of humans. Excuse me. And it looked great. I would have that as my Instagram photo immediately. That'd be my Twitter profile thing. So I can't judge him that hard, I guess. But I wouldn't have done it. I would have probably. I don't know. I honestly, I just optically, I don't think it looked great. But the Lions fans have woke up this morning in quite a fit, quite a fuss, quite a tissy. And a lot of people aren't talking about the fact that Matt Prater had an incredible game, one of the best games a kicker has had in a long time, 2 from 50 plus, and those things were dead straight. I mean, that was just beautiful balls. Him sucking the smelling salt, by the way, kind of wake him up right before he goes out there and dial in. Those things now, I mean, that's like one of them shots when people are ODing. What's that thing?
An adrenaline shot.
Yeah, like that's what those things do. Like literally, as soon as you, whoa, shit, shoot.
Oh no!
We gotta wait 10 seconds. And we're back. It's almost like it literally is almost like just like a shot of adrenaline, real quick. What's it called in there?
Is it
It's
Narcan?
ammonia.
It's ammonia.
Oh, it's
In the
Narcan.
smelling
Narcan.
I thought we were still on the.
The adrenaline shot.
I'm out here sniffing Narcan. I can take all the heroin I want.
Prater jogs onto the field and then Narcan. No, but that's what it is like. It like wakes you up. And Prater's been so good for so long. I mean, he was at the Broncos. Now he's at the Lions. He had the longest kick in the NFL. I think he still does right now. He currently has the longest kick in the NFL. He is a stud. And he's also a guy that you would most definitely want to have a beer with. So I'm a big fan of Prater and Martin up there. So happy that they had a big game. Happy Matthew Stafford looked damn good, too, especially after the Bleacher Report hit piece came out on him, basically, in the name of comedy. Yeah, I mean, they buried Matthew Stafford for no reason, I thought. And then nobody is talking about – they talk about the refs being the problem. But, Zito, do we have a clip?
Oh, yes.
Zito, do we have a clip? Nobody is talking about this potentially being 100% the reason why.
Shout out to the Lions. Big win last night.
Oh, come on.
Oh, no. Oh, you yourself there.
Classic.
I don't think it works that way.
That does.
No,
I mean, I guess we'll find out.
I'm not that important.
Last night, we recorded Pat McAfee Show 2.0 podcast with Ducky Hodges. It is out now. Starting quarterback for the Steelers this past Sunday, world champion duck caller. Electric interview. And we talked to him for like 35 minutes. It was magical. He has a roommate. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL. The roommate is not in the NFL. It's just a random guy. I mean, it's just a perfect story of the everyday man, duck caller going in there. But in that podcast, when you record a podcast the day beforehand, you have to kind of just project and predict what's going to happen. And Foxy, 1 week after getting bodied at the Yankees game,
This is
knows that he's on a string of terrible luck, decides to lock it up for the Detroit Lions. And everybody in the room was like, should have done that, pal. Nobody's talking about you just ruining the Lions' chances last night and setting that umpire up for failure to make bad calls with your projections, Evan Foxy.
Like I said last night, I am not that important. My words don't mean anything. And you have been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks, these refs stink.
Okay, so there's the voice of the Detroit Lions fan base this morning. And it's been interesting to hear because the New Orleans Saints fans, when they were complaining about massive, egregious. The New Orleans Saints fans are finding solace in all this, by the way. Because all I see, especially because I said it on ESPN yesterday about the refs, which I had to ask if I was allowed to beforehand. I was like, it sounds like you guys never talk about how bad the refs are. Is that like a mandate, or are we not allowed to do that? And I'll never forget when Greenberg looked at me, he's like, you can do that? And I was like, really? He was like, yeah, just don't say that like they're fixing games because that's not true and you can't prove that. But if it's an opinion of yours, you can say whatever you want. I was like, I've been saying this for a few weeks. Have you heard what I've been saying? And he was like, I have not. I'm excited to hear it. I'm like, well, all right, it's going to happen. So I went, and the internet has enjoyed it. And all I've seen is Saints fans going, oh, we were told to shut up and stop whining. Oh, we were told that we need to be better than the refs, and the refs can't win and lose your game. We were told that we don't know football. Basically, that's what the Saints fans were saying. And by the way, I think they have every right to say that. If I'm a Saints fan who was just getting crucified for the way I was reacting to their team. By the way, that was to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That is a massive moment. Everybody's like, oh, it happens every game, bro. Like, take it easy. And now everybody's like, excuse me, these refs are worse than they've ever been. And I would argue this, Saints fans. That call that you were upset about, and I can understand why you're upset. And I think I was on your side whenever it happened. I even pushed for the replay review to happen for pass interference. I mean, I was on your side there. But I can see how everybody came after you to tell you to do that. That egregious of a mistake is happening now every game. Mm-hmm. And I think even just a year ago, if we look at that, these mistakes weren't happening every single game. And I would argue that the social media thing is the same. I would argue that the television is the same. I would just argue that this year, for whatever reason, I blame Alberto, personally. I think he stinks at his job. I think he's a bad leader of men. I think he can't rally the troops to make good decisions, which ultimately falls not only on a head coach, not only it falls on a CEO of a business, it falls on the person in charge of things. I think he is potentially the reason why, and it has moved the needle for us on the internet because the world also agrees with that. But the on-field refs this year, they are also being terrible. I have no idea what's going on. And I think it all revolves around not having a pool of good refs. I think it all revolves around not having a feeding system. I think that's why they hold on for dear lives to these senior citizens that are calling games like Walt Anderson, because they're like, listen, Walt's bad. We know he's bad. We just don't want to bring in somebody new that will potentially cause a catastrophic call for us. Well, guess what? The catastrophic calls are happening every single week on primetime television in huge moments. These refs have got to get something figured out. Got to. Roger Goodell has got to figure something out. Or the NFL is going to continue to battle against this notion that they don't give a single damn, that the games are being definitely affected in a negative fashion by poor refereeing. And now that sports gambling, here's a stack. You get it. It's a stat and a fact. I got a little stacked for you. In the first month in Indiana, that gambling was legalized, sports gambling, where you could go to a place and bet. $34.5 million was gambled, okay? $34.5 million in Indiana. This is Indiana, which, if you look at our downtown, it is literally 1/8 of a block of New York City.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Not a massive town. Good people here. Hoosier hospitality is a real thing. But let's just assume that this isn't a lot of humans living in Indiana. That's why Indiana's probably better, by the way. That amount of money is being gambled just in Indiana. When that amount of money is tripled whenever it goes online full time in every single state, and there's people with a lot of money on each game, and Alberto Riveron and his little crew of Foot Locker people continue to blow these game-deciding calls, at what point is it just going to be dangerous? At one point, are people not going to be happy with this? At what point are people going to continue to lose money, whether it's because NFL coaches and players, they're going to get more checks, right? Guys are going to get more checks. So if you blow a call, yes, you're affecting a career. Yes, you just changed potentially the projection of the Lions' season last night. But what about the guy that's flipping tires for a living, that just wants to put $10 down on the Detroit Lions? His Lions team shows up, plays well, and in his eyes and in his mind, the only reason why he lost that bet is because the umpire threw 2 phantom calls, and that guy is just miserable. He's going to start hating the NFL for that. He's going to start hating these refs for that. He is going to not be happy. And everybody's like, well, you shouldn't put money on the game. Well, that's just what's happening. But the people that are saying you shouldn't put money on the game, $34.5 million being gambled. People enjoy sports more whenever they have a horse in a race. I don't think everybody gambles to excess, just like people who have a couple drinks at night don't drink to excess. Just like people who, I think drink's the best reference there. Yeah. Not everybody's alcoholics, just like not everybody is a degenerate gambler.
Just makes things a little bit better.
Just a little bit better. Put $5 in, $10 in. What happens whenever these guys and girls just continue to get screwed by these refs? There's going to be a little bit of a public outcry, I would say. And this is something that they need to nip in the butt very quickly.
You mentioned the 35 in Indiana because it just came on, but last month or in August there was $300 million in both New Jersey and Vegas, and then I tweeted this last night.
So is that $600 million combined? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so 300 in
both places, and I said this last night.
That's 2 places, by the way. We are 50 different countries. This America of ours. That is 2 different countries there, New Jersey and Nevada. $600 million gambled just in those 2. There's a lot of money going on in these games, and people just want to, by the way, it intrigues them. Horse racing, you think anybody gives a single damn about those horses running a lap? I mean, I guess there's some people that really love it and like, oh, it's art or whatever, and it could be even. It's 100% because people are gambling on it. That's just the world that we live in right now.
I mean, that was like the purpose of horse racing. That's like why it was created, was so people could gamble on it.
Shout out to the Rooneys. They got an entire football team that does it.
Damn right. Well, if they continue to influence who covers the spread in this way. I mean, it's going to become a big part of a fader's job to pay attention to what crew's working what game, and or do they screw up
They
more
already
calls
do.
at home? And then your average gambler is going to have to start adopting
there's
that
already-
into their
Which, by the way, is
strategy.
strategizing, which is smart. You have the Action Network app, too, that helps, I think, with a lot of that stuff. I don't know if they do the ref breakdowns.
They did umpires in baseball, so I assume NFL
It's gotta
refs
be
is
coming,
coming
yeah.
soon.
So Booger McFarland last night talked about how Matt Patricia has brought the Patriot way to Detroit, and I agree. Since I've been inside that building twice now, I agree that he's trying to flip that thing around and make it a much more, back to the basics technique, do your job type thing like the Patriots, while still trying to build their own brand. And he talks about how they break down the refs each week and this and that. I think that happens in every NFL team. I think that is something that does happen. And I appreciate Booger McFarland bringing that to people's attention because of how impactful the refs have been this year. But that is something that NFL teams do the day before the game. They're like, all right, here we go. Because they don't assign them until late. They don't assign the refs until late. And I always wondered why. I still wonder why. But I think it's because of what I'm about to tell you. They'll point at a ref, and they have their actual stats. They would be like a GA's job, like a guy who isn't a full-time coach. He's like an assistant or whatever. And he'll have an entire projection for it. He'd be like, all right, this back judge right here, this guy, flag happy, all right? So we can't be doing this. This guy loves to throw pass interferences, so maybe we get a couple shots in to see if this guy will get a little loose in the pocket for us. And then this guy, a lot of roughing the passers. So remember that if it's an after a play or something like that, he will protect you. Like all that stuff gets broken down. And on the flip side, defenders, this guy, if you touch anything, he's calling it. They get very antsy with holding calls. Stay away from this. That is a full breakdown that happens the day before games. And I would assume it has to be heightened even more. But I think the big problem nowadays is there's zero consistency. I think even within crews, there's no consistency. I mean, last night there was a ball going the opposite direction and then a touchdown. And they're all on headphones. So I don't know how it happens. Clete Blakeman, by the way, very good referee. He was catching a lot of ricochet shots last night for his crew making a mistake, which I do believe falls on Clete, by the way. It's his crew, and I think Clete will even say that. Clete is a good ref, though. But the fact that his boys all on the earpieces weren't like, oh, on this side, you can't see the ball over there? Okay, well, how about you don't make a damn call then? I can see the ball over here, and it's in. Like, that is something that should happen, I assume, and does happen. But optically, that looked terrible for these refs yet again. It was just like the Green Bay-Seattle touchdown, touchback, incomplete situation that was happening. It's a wild world right now, and they really got to figure it out because when you lose the mob, you lose Rome.
Yes.
Nailed it.
And the mob right now, everybody, and I don't want to be associated with the guy that hit the green light on folks to go in. Hey, we should be expecting a little accountability from these refs. We should be expecting these people who mess up in big-time situations to be held accountable. There should be some sort of punishment. I don't think that should be a problem because today the Lions will write in to the refs. This play, this time. And by the way, there's more than just those two. There's probably a holding on a special teams play that happened that wasn't called, a block in the back that wasn't called. These happen just on regular games, let alone spotlight game-winning drive fouls. There's a bunch of other things.
Right.
They'll type it up. Tom McMahon, special teams coach now for the Broncos, for the Colts. This dude was the best with this. He was like, listen, you got screwed, bud, and I wrote it in. And I wrote it in. And then whenever the team meeting will happen, they'll be like, they got back to us. They said that they were flawed or they made a mistake at this situation, this situation, this situation, this situation. And everybody just looks around and goes, well, what the hell does that mean? Like, what is that? Does that take back the loss that we just had on Monday Night Football? Oh, does that completely screw our stats for our punt team, kickoff return team? Like, does that help? Like, no, but they did admit that they were wrong. I was like, did they admit they were wrong publicly? Or is it just an email to the team? They're like, well, Tom McMahon's like, Pat, I don't know. I just do football, Pat. But that's a real thing. They'll send an email this morning saying they were wrong about this, and this. And then they'll move on to the next week and say, we'll get better. And then they'll send out a video this upcoming weekend, and it'll be like, here is what we're focusing on this weekend. And it'll be some dry thing where we're focusing on holding by the defensive back. So anytime they say we're focusing on something, it's like a heightened thing on that. It's just There's zero consistency, zero talent, and I think it's getting much worse before it gets better. And now that everybody is potentially going to have a horse in the race because of sports gambling, this is something Roger Goodell is going to have to figure out. Stat, Roger. Stat.
I believe.
What does that mean, by the way, stat? I hear doctors say
Right
it.
now.
Yeah, but like how?
I don't know what it stands for. I assumed it was an acronym for something.
The stat man.
I don't think we're even allowed to do that. That's gonna, I think Dawn has to dump that, or we're going to have to pay $3 million.
I believe NFL owners meetings, they have them today and tomorrow. Do you think they just go through your timeline and be like, this is what everyone's saying? We need to do something about
They
it.
do that for the season extension. They've done that for the review thing now. I would assume that my Twitter feed should at least be a topic of conversation at these NFL owners meetings. What a joke. Ah, man, it's 10:26. Hell of a first 25 minutes here. Very, very... it almost is sad how bad these refs are. It's not all refs. It's not all... Feels like it. But I think there's some good ones out there that can save the day. You know, they take these D1 football players, and if they don't pan out, they're putting them in NASCAR pit crews. You know, that's real.
Yeah.
Like right now, down at Hendricks Motor in Charlotte, they have an entire facility for this pit crew. They have a chef for them. They live nice. It's just an extension of college football, basically. They got a gym. And they're their pit crew. Fast, attention to detail, ability to learn, work ethic, all these things is what they scout for. Why can't the NFL pluck them from the NASCAR? Why can't they be like, hey, you weren't good enough to make it to the NFL. You love the game. Let's have you all house up, shack up somewhere. Here's a workout facility. Here's a chef. Here's some film you can study. Like the WWE Performance Center down there in Orlando, where all the up-and-coming superstars and NXT superstars, they have film down there. Why don't you do that for the refs?
Makes too much sense.
Why don't you do that
Good
for the
idea.
refs? Billions and billions of dollars are being made. Why let some footlocker dude mess it all up? 10:28, we got LeVar Arrington on the other side. You're listening to the Pat McAfee Show. You all can hear them. Welcome back to the Pat McAfee Show. I am he. It is 10:32 on this beautiful Tuesday, October 15th. The internet is abuzz about the poll saying, would you rather have Dak or Cam Newton? Cowboys fans are not happy with me even considering that, which I can respect. We will now be joined by a man who is maybe the greatest physical specimen to ever walk this earth. Created something called the All-Mammal Team. I never made it. I wish I would have. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, All-American, Butkus Award winner, Bednarik Award winner. You know him as soon as you see him. Ladies and gentlemen, LeVar Arrington.
Yeah.
Pretty
For
good.
the brand, baby. For the brand.
Hey, pretty good little intro there for you, huh? You like that?
I liked it, man. The mammal deal. You know, all mammal all day, baby.
Why did you why'd you cut the dreads? That was such a signature look for you for so long. I think it was all the way down to your ankles at one point. Why did we get rid of them?
Yeah, man. And I'm about to go all mammal on these little ass dogs out here. It's so crazy. Look at this. Look at what's going on in my community here.
He is on a FaceTime, and there are 2 poodles outside. 3 poodles going to town in the open area there. Good for you, LeVar.
It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous, but I enjoy it. It's fun. It keeps us all connected. You know what I mean? Keeps us all connected. I cut my hair, Pat, because I ended up having a kid, and the reality, I guess the one thing that really hit me was my hair was making me feel like Samson every day. And so I was getting carried away with the whole idea of the strength was in my hair, and so I had to make a change, bro, or I was going to be like really having like 19 kids running around.
Okay. I can respect that. You're a good-looking man with or without the dreads. Let's talk about the Washington Redskins, a team that you know a little bit about. They seem to be in such an interesting situation over there. Is Dan Snyder the problem? That's what everybody says. The Redskins are this terrible organization. What are your thoughts on the whole thing from being inside of it?
Listen, I don't want people to misinterpret. I've said for years it's Dan Snyder, all right, but I don't want people to misinterpret it's him being that it's a horrible place.
Got it.
It's not a horrible place. It's not a horrible franchise. It's a historical franchise. It's just that there has to be a learning curve that eventually is realized if the culture of that place is going to improve and be a culture of winning. There's been so many different debates as to why, but when you look at all the coaches that have come there, all the players, all the names that have been associated with them, the GMs, you name it, there's nothing left, Pat. Like, what else can you look at and say, you know what? It might be this coach. It might be this player. Like, imagine this, right? If Pat McAfee went and played in his prime at Washington for the Redskins, right? That wouldn't even be enough to make that a better team.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Think about that, bro. Think about that. And so for me, when I say it's the owner, I say it in a way like, think about Trent Williams, right? That's your best, maybe the best offensive lineman since the Hogs to play for your organization. He doesn't even want to be there. He doesn't want to come back. He feels like, he's been abandoned. He feels, and I don't want to speak for him, but, he feels like he was misdiagnosed with something that he had going on medically. It just seems to be the same stuff. You look at the RG3 fiasco. You look at, wait, the LeVar Arrington fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
You look at so many different things that have happened within that organization. You can't say that it's a good culture.
Gotcha.
I'm not saying it's a horrible organization. I'm just saying that the culture of it needs to change.
Well, Bruce Allen's a dum-dum. I mean, that was you don't have to say it. You don't have to say it. I'll say it. Okay, speaking of dum-dums, these refs, man, are stealing the show. Last night, a pass rusher, Trey Flowers, a good one at that, basically sealed the game there a couple times for him, tried his best, and a phantom hands-to-the-face call happened. But this is just the cherry on top of a year that has been riddled with terrible calls. What are your take on the whole thing, and how do you fix it, you think?
Refs have always been a nemesis to organized sports. I feel like it's a necessary evil in some ways to have them. Obviously, there would probably be total anarchy. I'd probably be drop kicking people and stopping people when I played and kicking them in between their legs to take them down, all kinds of stuff. Stepping on necks, but
you just kept going there. Hey, by the way, these are all things you've thought of.
Yeah, I thought of. You know, and I won't say what happens in the pile-ups, you know. But you got to have referees that, you know, to manage the game. I always thought referees were supposed to manage the games, not dictate them. And I think that's where refereeing has kind of gotten to now. They dictate the games, and that's I don't think that's good for the game, and it's definitely, like your shirt says, it's not good for the brand.
Agree.
They're fighting a battle where participation and health concerns surrounding the game. They're trying to legislate the game on the field the same way they're trying to legislate it on Capitol Hill or in the mom's living room. They're trying to make it seem like this is a game that is being monitored and being officiated in a way where player safety comes first, and so holding calls different. So it was always the defense got all these calls, right? But now you're seeing more offensive calls coming down the pipe. I just think that they're facing a player safety crisis, and they're trying to address it through on the field. They're trying to address it through the referees, and I think it's failing. I think it's creating more concerns and more backlash and fallout from watching a quality product.
That's interesting to me that you make that Capitol Hill reference, because it does feel as if, you know how they make like the seatbelt rule where you have to wear your seatbelt? And it's like, come on, I can make that decision.
From Pittsburgh, man. We didn't wear seatbelts.
Ever. No, I think you should, by the way. As a host of a show that is being heard by a lot of humans, probably in their cars, you should wear your seatbelt because it's safer.
Wear your seatbelt.
But when they made that,
throw a windshield, man.
when they made that law, I was like, I don't need you thinking for me, okay? If I want to put the seatbelt on, I'll put the seatbelt on. It does feel as if in the NFL where they're like, we're going to think for the players' safety for them. We're going to start making calls for them, even whether they want them or not. It does feel like they're kind of overreaching what they originally were intended to do, I think.
Yeah, they're governing the game. They're not managing the game. They're running the game. And that's not what, in my assumption, my estimation, I don't think that's what referees were intended to do. I thought they were there to manage the game. They're like guardrails, right? You're not dictating whether you get a strike or not. You're just making sure the ball doesn't go in the gutter. You know what I mean?
Bumper rails.
Keep bumpers, right? Keep us out of the gutter, right? But don't dictate whether the ball gets a strike or not. You know?
How are you as a bowler?
That's
you a good bowler or no?
I was pretty good, man.
I
was pretty good.
Not anymore?
No, I haven't. I told you, man, I was making too many kids. It's too expensive to go bowling anymore, man. And if I need an
entire bowling alley. Got a lot of kids. Need all the lanes.
I thought about putting one in my crib at one point in time, but my kids are like real destructo bots. You know? So I've had to try to figure out a way to live like a good productive life with kids that ruin and break everything. Break all your dishes and lose all your stuff, and it's hard, man. Hard.
It's not easy, man.
You got to find a way to survive, though, man. You did it. I did it. My issue to deal with.
Let's talk about you being the most underappreciated freak athlete of all time. Never gets brought up. LeVar Arrington's name never gets brought up when they're talking about best athletes of all time. And I would say, as a pure mammal, you are. I was at the game where you jumped over the entire line. I was at the game. I just so happened to go with one of my friends from Plum, who's a Penn State alum. We were sitting up. We were sitting up in the nosebleeds. I will never forget it when I saw this human. I thought was a human fly over this group and immediately. Then you get to the NFL, same old thing. Then we start reading stats. You a 10-800. You could have went to North Carolina to play basketball. You just everything was a kid's game to you. It felt like, and I don't think you get talked about enough. What stat am I missing that I didn't mention there?
They're not. There's no missing stats needed. You just get me. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. I don't know. It's like it's such a lifetime ago. I don't really stun off of being viewed that way anymore. You know what I mean? My whole thing is like what you're doing. Like I want to be respected for my mind and the opinions and the thoughts that I bring to the table to create stimulating conversations. But I always felt like being smart was the reason why I was so athletic. I always say it's mind over matter. Anytime that I wanted to do something, it's so funny. I used to dunk the ball, and my older brother was like, you dunk so easily. Try to do it with your elbows. I used to actually try to dunk the ball with my elbows, man.
So there's the missing stat. Yeah. Hey, there it is right there. I appreciate you getting to the missing stat.
But it was my mind convincing me that I could actually get high enough to dunk with my elbows. Now, I never pulled it off, but I did. I actually did get high enough on the backboard where my wrist was on the top of the white banking square. That is a claim to fame. So I was pretty athletic, man.
I'd say.
I did a few things, but it doesn't. If I can't see the next generation of guys learn from me and do it the best, then it really was all for naught anyway. But I appreciate the propers, though. I mean, it's always nice when somebody shows you a little love on what you did in a previous life.
What are you still doing work with the NFL Network? I used to see you on TV all the time. Now I don't get to watch television as much. And every time I got to share the screen with you, I was always so impressed with your brain. And you could, this is not a shot at anybody. I'm a different personality. I think it's because we're both from Pittsburgh. You and I could keep up with each other. You know what I mean? Like I feel like whenever we got going, we could keep up with each other, which was awesome, which doesn't happen. There's not a lot of chemistry that happens all the time. You're very good on television.
Well, what it is all of that pierogi juice that they put in our bottles growing up, which is totally Pittsburgh. I think that it develops your brain cells a little quicker. They say hugging and telling your kid you love them and stuff like that. But I think it was pierogi juice mixed with washing it down with icy light. That's the reason why we are able to vibe on the same level, bro. And that's just what it is, man. Some things you just have to be from there to understand it.
Do you enjoy working on the TV? Or do you think they you said you like to stimulate conversation? Sometimes there people like stimulating debate on TV as well. Or do you enjoy the whole process, or you think?
I do because the thing about it is there's so much going on in the world that if you actually have something interesting enough about you where somebody forms an opinion about you, then you've done something pretty phenomenal. And I enjoy that. If you can make somebody laugh, or if you can make somebody mad, or you can make somebody sad, to actually think that you could stimulate enough emotion and thought through something that was created, within your brain, it's kind of interesting to me, and to be able to do it over and over again is people tend to think when I just put a post on my IG talking about retire the word hater. Find a different word than hater. It's 2000, it's heading into 2020. Use a different word other than hater. I just always feel like when you come up with things that are thought provoking, some people are going to fall in line and agree. Some people are not going to agree. Some people are going to be indifferent. But when you're looking at it, you still take the time to actually formulate a thought. And if your thought ends with hater, to me, that's almost like using profanity unnecessarily, right? It's a lack of education. It's a lack of showing, a grasp of what it is that's being discussed. Now, I'm not saying I don't curse, because I have cursed. I am a cursor at times. But I just feel like when I curse, I really want you to know that I am very, very upset. So when that curse word comes out, it's usually very quick, it's very sharp, and then it's done. I don't use it for educational purposes. I use it purely to let you know, like, I'm showing my teeth. Like, be afraid of me right now. And that's why I'm cursing.
Well, I want to let you know, I hope I don't make you curse. I hope I can have you back on the show again. We have to get to a break.
Indeed, man.
Ladies and
Indeed.
Gentlemen, incredibly intelligent, freak athlete, and not a hater of the haters. Ladies, LeVar Arrington. Thank you so much, LeVar. I appreciate you. We got to get to a break. 10:48. You're listening to the Pat McAfee Show. Hello and welcome back to the Pat McAfee Show. It is 10:54 and we have about a minute left in this first hour. LeVar Arrington was absolutely incredible. If you haven't caught that conversation, if you just caught the tail end of that thing, very thought-provoking. And at the beginning of the thing, you almost punted a couple dogs. All right, it's 10:54. We got 1 minute. I'm going to run through this. Cam Newton, an AFC general manager, leaked to Bleacher Report that he thinks 10 teams would want to trade for Cam Newton. These are my 5 teams, although somebody had mentioned potentially going to the Cowboys, which caused quite a debate on the internet from Cowboys fans. I did not say it, but hey, you guys need to lose your mind. I think there a place that he could potentially go to. I think they get better if Cam Newton goes to the Titans. Bengals, stinks for Cam Newton if he's got to go there, but it's something. Broncos, I don't like this one. It was put on the list by Connor, who just came back to the office. Connor pitched hard for the Broncos. Joe Flacco, undefeated since appearing on the Pat McAfee Show 2.0 podcast.
Correct.
He might be all the way back to elite, especially out there in Denver. Buccaneers, people are thinking that could be the answer because Bruce Arians, talented offensive guy, but he revolves around throwing the ball a lot. So let's see if Cam Newton can drop a dime or not. And the number one team that should be looking for Cam Newton to be their starting quarterback just lost an offensive guard yesterday. The Chicago Bears. We're back on the other side. You're listening to the Pat McAfee Show. Ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this in the first hour. We actually have a podcast that comes out every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. What is this for? Huh? Oh, this is for the vlog? Oh, okay. Our life is insanity. Today, we release a weekly vlog every single Tuesday. Foxy gets to capture the entire thing behind the scenes from the Dapgate situation with Richard Sherman all the way to a Yankee game where Foxy got bodied. Our new vlog came out today. You can find it at youtube.com/The Pat McAfee Show. Foxy, play that thing.
What's up, YouTube? Come on into the PMI offices. How we doing? Zoom in, zoom out. Let's go look at that basketball court right there. That's what I was thinking happens. This is the engine room right here. Studio, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in. Look at the corner, we got DJ Nick here. Go ahead, Nick.
Hi, guys.
All right, I'm gonna take you right to the TVs. Let's go, zoom in, zoom out. Stop. There's Billy. Billy,
say hi. This is the punching bag, actually. Take that! We got TVs right here. We got Tony, man, the sofa. Say hi.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, we'll take you to the workout gym right here. Ooh, this is where we get our Let's go to the kitchen. We got Ty in the kitchen right now.
What's up, YouTube? See this shit. Got fucking every spice you could want, every condiment you could want.
Tell them to zoom in, zoom out.
Zoom in, zoom out. Fridge. Jay's had this pizza in here for like 6 months. Just finished out the Cristal. If you want some.
Oh, pour that out, pour that out, pour it out.
Our lunatic sales guy fucking shot up the fridge. You can see the bullet holes in here. New fridge is gonna be on the way. Pretty sick. Pretty nice kitchen.
All right, let's go upstairs. Woo. This is the conference room. We're upstairs right now. That's Blockhead over there. That's Pat's dad. He is at the fundraising office. We got the captain of the ship, Pat, playing video games at twitch.tv/Pat McAfee Show. I know that slash.
/ the Pat McAfee Show. Zoom in, zoom out. We twitching in this bitch.
All right, let's go behind the curtain. This is the Heartland studio. We got Todd behind the host desk right there. How are we doing, Todd?
Good. I did all the Harley research in this notebook. Cow condoms. Why aren't we using them so we can stop castrating bulls?
You heard it here, bulls. Zoom in, zoom out. All right, YouTube, thanks for coming by. All right, YouTube, thanks for coming by. But you gotta go. You can't stay home, so you have to get out of here. All right, YouTube, you don't have to stay here. All right, YouTube, that's the office. You don't gotta stay here, but you gotta get the fuck out of here. All right, YouTube, you don't have to go home, but you gotta get out of here. All right, YouTube, thanks for coming by. But you can't stay here. See ya.
It's the perfect occasion for a little vacation from the heart of the nation. Out of your medication, 2 hours of magic. Let's give it a go. Ladies and gents, it's the Pat McAfee Show. It's the Pat McAfee Show.
Welcome back to the Pat McAfee Show. It is 11:01. Thanks to Chase Rice, country musician, for that banger here on this Tuesday, October 15th. Joining me in Indianapolis, Indiana is at Nick Morado, at Tone Diggs, at Ty Schmidt, at Evan Foxy, at Viva Lazito. My brother Jason McAfee's running the board, and Todd McComas is on the phones. 1-833-622-3331. A lot to talk about on this beautiful Tuesday. Yesterday was Overreaction Monday, and boy, we overreacted to some things, but what we can never overstate, never be talked about enough, is these refs are deciding games at this point. Had an entire conversation with LeVar Arrington last hour where he said he thought refs were supposed to manage the game. Instead, now they're dictating games, which was very apparent last night as the Detroit Lions, Matt Patricia and Matthew Stafford, voyaged over to Green Bay, Wisconsin to take on the Green Bay Packers. Matthew Stafford came out firing. All systems go for Matthew Stafford. flamethrower out the gate, dropping the ball in the bucket. I think he threw for 230 yards in the first half, maybe 300 yards in the first half. It was absolutely a thing of beauty. The Packers defense got things right. Old Mike Pettin, and they turned it around. Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur started slinging it a little bit. Williams showed up to the game instead of Aaron Jones, who had a couple turnovers. And whenever it came push to shove in the final few minutes of the game, down 2 scores, Aaron Rodgers driving, which, by the way, Aaron Rodgers gets the ball and needs a drive and score. We assume he's going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to do that, though. On a 3rd and 7, it was a sack. He went down in the fetal position because of the incredible pressure by Trey Flowers and others amongst that Lions D-line. But no. The umpire says, let's extend this thing. Throws the flag out there. Clete Blakeman says, personal foul, hands to the face, defense. That's a 15-yard penalty and extends the drive on 3rd down in the 4th quarter, down 2 scores. Then, with the game on the line, no timeouts left for the Detroit Lions on a 3rd down yet again, where they would have had to kick a field goal to take the lead and give Matthew Stafford a shot. Bang! Same call. Trey Flowers, phantom hands to the face. Now everybody this morning, Mason Crosby goes on to hit the game winner, does the Lambeau leap. Aaron Rodgers does an interview afterwards, talks about how happy he is to be a Green Bay Packer, loves that Mason Crosby hit a game winner on Monday Night Football again, loves that their defense is great. We're back. We're the pack. We're this. We didn't cover because Williams made the most selfless decision in the history of football in a Week 6 game. If you bet Packers -3.5, you saw a guy squat at the 2-yard line. Just go ahead and squatty potty right there on the 2-yard line, which is the right move when it comes to football, especially if you have a kicker like Mason Crosby, who you know is going to knock it through, has been there, done that. If you got a younger kicker who's a little bit of a crap stable, a little bit of a roulette spin, you don't do that. You go in and you seal the game. And I thought about that, by the way, as Mason Crosby was jogging on the field. I was like, man, if Mason Crosby misses this and they don't cover, Williams is going to be on what we like to call a hotter seat than Jason Garrett. But it's the right move to do, especially for your team. Don't let the other team get a chance to come back and get the win. They talk about this in team meetings all the time, literally like, all right, situational football, let's know what situational football is here. Yes, a touchdown is nice, but if you go down, it'll make sure that we get the win as opposed to them coming back and getting the victory. Then the coach always follows up immediately. Yes, I understand that your contract probably has an incentive based in it for touchdowns scored and yards ran and things like that. And yes, the kicker could miss and you look like an idiot and you would get fired for it. But good football says you go down. And ain't nobody ever listened to that. Except for last night, Williams with an incredibly high football IQ move, squats down on the 2-yard line when others in the past have fake fallen and fallen into the end zone. Oh, I tried to go down. I tried to do the right thing. But I also got like an extra $100,000. Mason Crosby kicks it. Game over. People that had Packers -3.5, people in this room who had Packers -3.5 did not cover. People who said the Lions were guaranteed a victory on the podcast, which is out today, that was recorded yesterday for the Detroit Lions, they did not win. Packers got another win, and that team looks damn good. LaFleur is one of the rookie head coaches right now who's shining. 5-1, I believe. Is that accurate? Yep. 5-1 right now for the Pack with NFC North dominance happening. Beat the Bears opening night, beat the Packers now, beat the Vikings. It feels as if the Packers are just going to walk away with the NFC North. And like I've been saying, that's my Super Bowl team out of the NFC. Mm-hmm. Now, that was before I saw the San Francisco 49ers play football 2 times. 49ers look damn good. Let's assume when Drew Brees gets back to the Saints, they're going to be good. But that Packers team looks incredible. And a lot of people in Detroit are like, yeah, they look good at football. But so does our team. And if it wasn't for those 2 calls, phantom calls by the NFL refs last night, we win that game, and Aaron Rodgers is now 4-2. And I agree. That is a situation that we've been talking about for a while now. Whenever the referees are ruining games and blowing games on primetime television at a rapid rate like we currently have in a society that allows people to voice their opinions wherever, whether it's on the internet, whether it's on Get Up, whether it's on this show, You are going to hear hell whenever there's zero accountability for these refs. When they get something wrong, nothing's ever said. The only thing that's sent is a memo to the teams individually saying, hey, we messed up this, we messed up this. Like the Detroit Lions are getting a memo either today or tomorrow that's going to say we missed those 2 hands to the face calls. Also, this holding on this special teams thing, they send a memo to the team laying out everything that they got wrong. But the public never gets to see it. The public never has to hear that umpire last night that made those 2 calls in that game go step in front of a press conference and say, yeah, well, I don't know football. Well, it's a lot harder when you're, at least if they had to do that, people would be able to put the human behind the umpire, where the guy would be like, well, in full speed, you can see how these 2 guys who are physically gifted athletes, Bakhtiari is one of the best tacklers, Trey Flowers is a known pass rusher, how at full speed, hand-to-hand combat, and Bakhtiari throws his head back. You could see how I could potentially think that was hands to the face. And everybody was like, well, it wasn't. He'd be like, well, you could see how I could do it. At least if he does that, there's a little accountability. There's a little bit of putting a face with the call. There's just a little bit of something for Lions fans to be like, yeah, the guy said he thought he saw it. I mean, there's nothing else we can do. Instead, silence is deafening. Nothing is said. Nothing said by Goodell. Nothing said by Alberto Riveron, except for his little review videos he puts on at NFL Officiating, which is just a bunch of garbage BS. It almost makes it even worse. He's like, oh, this was a hold because he held the jersey. No. Crap. Alberto Riveron. I think they should have press conferences for these refs. They should sit up there like the NBA players do it. You know how they have like a dais and have 5 of them up there on the dais, and then have the press, or maybe have voices of the internet have a chance to ask these questions. Like, hey, at Burner Garage wants to know. He wants to know. Like, have a mediator, read this thing to him. These are, or maybe, hey, these are the things that are being talked about by everybody right now. Would you guys like to address it? Which one of you would like to address it? And maybe Cleat steps up and says, okay, on a rough, or the head ref goes, okay, on this roughing the passer, this is what I saw. I could see how the internet's saying it's soft, how that wasn't duty of a call. But you got to remember, what we're being told is any hand to the helmet on a quarterback is an automatic call. That's what I did. So then at least we can be like, all right, so this guy is he's just a covering the rule to the T. And then you have these people answer. Do something, because the lack of accountability is the biggest issue here, and the silence about it all is also a massive thing. You got Barry Sanders tweeting about it. I don't even think Barry Sanders likes the Lions, and he's upset that the Lions lost us. If Calvin Johnson starts tweeting about it, then we know that there's a real problem. I think that's when Goodell would be like, wait, Calvin Johnson's talking about the Lions getting screwed? Wait a minute, let's talk about it. But not only Barry Sanders, you're talking about Jack Del Rio. You're talking about basically every human that watches football has a thought about these refs, and not a single one of them are positive. They have to be able to change the narrative. In the face of a PR crisis, you have to go right in. You have to dive right in. And I'm not saying I handled a PR crisis better than most people do. Tony Dungy, a man who is literally known for not having opinions. That's what he does. He doesn't upset anybody. He's liked by everybody. On Sunday Night Football, he'll just say that he won't say one thing or the other. He'll just whatever. He just gives good knowledge and just makes everybody happy. Last night, he's like, these dudes stink, is what Tony Dungy basically said in his own words. Clay Matthews, you name it. By the way, I got DMs in my DM from a lot of NFL players that are like, keep fighting a good fight, man. Keep fighting a good fight. I'm like, I got you guys. You guys literally aren't allowed to say it. They take money out of your checks if you guys say it. So, I mean, just let me put makeup on, screaming to a microphone and talk. I'll try to raise a little attention. But everybody is talking about it, and there has to be some accountability. And I think the accountability comes from answering questions. And I think that's a quick way for us to find out who should be reffing in the NFL and who should be reffing in high school again. I told one ref that he should be reffing in high school. I was right. I was right. I don't know if the NFL thought that. That guy's probably still reffing right now. I don't even know who he is. That's how bad he was. But this has been a problem. But now it is a full problem because Alberto Riveron, bad ref on the field, has been plucked to be in charge of everybody because these TV networks take everybody. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Ad nauseum. Mm-hmm. By the way, there's a D in there, so it's not at nauseum, which I always thought it's ad nauseum.
Oh. Well, you know.
See that?
Oh, yeah.
I feel pretty good about that.
Ipso facto.
The TV networks have taken, no, ipso facto means if this, then this.
Well, I wasn't saying it was meant the same thing, but I also, some people, like Zito, thought it was not ipso facto, something else.
Yeah, it's with a P, by the way, I didn't know either. That's something. But these TV networks take these refs that are pretty good, And there's not a lot of good refs. It's not an easy thing to be good at. You got to be a cop that's athletic. You got to be able to have social skills. You got to politic a little bit. You got to be able to do anything. You got to be able to speak. There's a lot of things that go into being a good ref. Not easy to do. Not easy to do. And when you take those good ones and put them on TV and then you put a trash one in charge of everybody, you have to automatically assume that, this is going to be trash. Ipso facto, you have to assume that this is going to be trash, and that is what has happened. And I don't know how they fix it. I don't know if Hockey League's got to have like 14 to 15 more kids so that every game can be covered by a Hockey League. I have no idea what they do. I do believe that my thought of instead of letting these college football athletes who don't pan out to the NFL go and be NASCAR pit crews, maybe have them focus on being an NFL ref. Have them go to like a campus, go to a school, have a workout facility there, have a chef there. Treat it as if it's its own team, because guess what? It is. The NFL refs are their own team right now, and they are affecting games for I would say they're the most powerful team in the NFL right now. The number one team in the NFL is the refs, and that's just because they're beating the hell out of everybody. Everybody's can get it.
One sentiment that I really didn't get last night on the backlash from Twitter, and granted, I'm a Packers fan, so I'm not tooting this horn that loud today, but like we knew these guys were going to be terrible going in. It's not like all of a sudden everyone thought they were going to wake up and like call a great game last night. Like you expected this to happen, so that's kind of crazy. I think Lions fans can take solace in the fact that because last night was such a disaster, that might finally be the tipping point where they're like, all right, we have to do something about it now.
What you said is starting to become the issue. Like you said that we should start expecting this. We can't just start expecting this. That's when everything, because there was the outrage last night on Twitter, but then there was a scary part of Twitter that was like, this is just the new norm, and we can't have that be the new norm.
The NFL can't be the league that is just known for having poor officials. Tim Donaghy, I would argue, did a lot of bad for the NBA. Right? Because the common fan, the people who are maybe NFL fans who aren't NBA fans, when they heard the Tim Donaghy thing, they go, we know it. We knew it. Yeah. Touch a guy, it's foul, he's getting points. Easy for the refs to control that. And I'm not saying refs are cooking games like Tim Donaghy, but whenever you lose the integrity of the game, like the rules aren't going to be called accurately, things are going to be wrong blatantly, games are going to be decided by wrong calls, you lose some people where they're like, you know what, these refs, and just like the people in the big cities that were either very east of us or very west of us thought that the kneeling thing wasn't that big of a deal for ratings. They had no idea that out here in America, in the middle of America, people were not happy about that. Was it because they didn't fully understand the cause when it started and it became a polarizing issue? 1,000%. I think at the beginning of that, there should have been some conversations from both parties to come together, because I think that could have happened just as somebody who was literally dropped in the middle of one side and then have a lot of friends that were on the other side. I think that could have been handled by conversations very early, but instead, two different groups made up their minds and were just going polar opposite directions, and everybody was enjoying that and getting ratings off of them going opposite directions. So it continued to get filled, and people in the coast, I don't think they were like, this isn't that big of a deal. I'm like, there's people literally hanging banners out their house not to watch NFL over here in the middle of America, where it was spun against military, which, by the way, most of the military comes from out over here. So it was a bad situation that I'm happy has been figured out, but I think it could have been figured out a lot earlier with the chatting. I think these refs are very much pissing people off. I think there is a lot of people who live and die with the NFL, and whenever their team gets screwed by a bad call, and it just happens on a regular basis, like Lions fans are tweeting me this morning like 15 to 16 different occasions where they have been blatantly screwed. And it's not talked about because the Lions have stunk for a long time, but they're going into the history. You could see how fans that are diehard to their team are like, okay, our team is finally good. Finally good. Finally good. We got something that we can really believe in. And we're about to beat the Packers in a primetime game with Aaron Rodgers in there while we still matter. Not like a Week 17 game where nothing matters. This is a real game that matters. And what happens? We don't win because these refs screw us. You can see how people are like, I'm done with this league. I'm done with it. And the NFL has just said nothing about it.
Pat, I'm wearing a shirt that says Detroit versus everybody. This shirt exists for a reason. This is what happens to the Lions. And, I feel bad for the city. I feel bad for the organization. I feel bad for the fans. But you know who I feel the worst for that does not deserve this?
Who dat?
Matthew Stafford. You're talking about a guy that was literally drafted to the worst team in NFL history. They went 0-16, drafted Matthew Stafford. He's been there for 10 years. He's literally never had an offensive line, never had a running back, and all he does is show up, show out, and never complains about the organization or anything. And this happens, and he's battling the refs.
See, what you just heard right there is literally a Lions fan. And what you could have heard against the Ravens in the Pittsburgh Steelers game was a Pittsburgh Steeler fan. And what you could have heard from the Colts whenever they had that phantom offensive pass interference, if we don't go on to beat the Chiefs there, that's going to be talked about by Colts fans. So you just, right there, you got Detroit, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, right? 3 pretty diehard fan bases. I mean, Indianapolis is a new one, by the way, especially reborn after the Luck thing. I mean, after Peyton left, it was a new fan base. After Luck has left now, it's a brand new, I would argue, much more energized fan base now with Jacoby Brissett. But there's just 3 teams in this room that we're talking about where people are not happy.
Packers got screwed by the Eagles.
Packers right there. And by the way, that touchdown, he seemed to be about a yard short last night.
Well, hey, I mean, all you can do is go by what they call on the field. I mean, see, I mean, I was pretty active last night taking shots at people. I don't think I was being too outlandish. I mean, the refs are bad, period. We know it. We've been talking about it for 6 weeks. They stink, okay? Everyone has to deal with it. It's not just the Lions.
Right.
It's not just the Packers. Every team has to deal with it. You know what? They didn't capitalize on turnovers. You score a couple touchdowns in the red zone instead of having to kick field goals. Then they beat the Packers by 2 touchdowns, and this is a non-issue.
But this is what's always said. Said.
That's true. And granted, I would be saying something a lot different if the Packers would have got screwed over last night. But they didn't. And I also don't think I should,
It's not you should not feel bad about the win.
Oh, and I don't. A win is a win, okay? People were saying, like, I'd rather have an honorable game and play good and lose. No, you wouldn't.
No.
And if you would, you're a moron or a loser. So, or a stooge or a sellout. And I got no time for any of them. Packers are 5-1, first in the division, 3-0. Let's go, baby.
Thanks to the refs. That's what people are saying.
Hey, we'll take it any way we can get it.
It's nice maybe to be a little small-town team and get the refs to help you
Yeah,
a little bit.
I mean, it doesn't happen. And again, that's the part of it, is the Packers have been screwed over plenty. Okay?
Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, we lost the game on Monday night on a clear interception. So this is comeuppance for that. And, it's tough that the Lions are on the other side of it.
Comeuppance is actually a real word, by the way.
It is.
Anyways, Drake in Indianapolis has a good idea. 1-833-622-3331. Drake, what's up, dog? Will you ask Drake what's up? This mic doesn't work.
Hey, Drake, how's it going?
Hey, man, what's going on?
Get into it. What's up?
Okay, so what if we mic'd up the refs? Pat kind of alluded to this last Tuesday, talking about Mr. Stooge and sellout himself, or Alberto Riveron. But what if we mic'd up the regular refs?
And
Good call, Drake. The thought of miking up the refs is actually a good idea. And A.J. Hawk tweeted this yesterday. And by the way, A.J. Hawk is one of the most laissez-faire guys of all time. He and I have been friends here for a while. Motivational speeches do not do much for me and A.J. Hawk. It's like he's a very dry guy. So to see him come out and even be like, hey, we should be able to hear what these refs are talking about. Because in that Chiefs game, the ref clearly goes to his ear and says, excuse me? Oh, okay. All right. And then he tells the guy, which, by the way, if they get the call right, I'm completely okay with. Mike Florio came on our show last year. It was on our podcast, Pat McAfee Show 2.0. New episode out right now with Ducky Hodges, quarterback, the Steelers, and also world champion duck caller. That's a real thing. Mike Florio came on the show, and he proposed a lot of good ideas, by the way. Paisan, who runs Pro Football Talk, proposed a lot of good ideas. And I think I'd been pitching an idea, so when our brains came together, it was real. The fact that they all have their headsets on. They all are listening to something. They're all hearing somebody talk to somebody. Now, granted, they don't want to admit that New York is talking to them because that could jeopardize the integrity of the game if the league is making calls for people. I don't know why there isn't somebody in the press box where I'm at, in their own little room. There's a lot of rooms in every stadium, in their own little room with all the TVs set up, with the all 22 cameras set up that they can have, with an Exos thing to kind of rewind and go forward, with the microphone directly into the ear of the ref, where if they mess up a play, they can replay it real quick and they can just shoot down. Hey, Cleet, that was not a hands to the face. Just pick up that thing and let's save us all the trouble. And Cleet can even say, booth operator told us that was not a hands to the face. We have not even seen it on the film. We did not know that, but our eyes in the sky have told us that it's not the case. Pick up the flag. It is now 4th down and whatever 20 it was after that sack. I don't know why they don't do that. I would assume it's because people can think that person can be swayed or make the wrong call. That's already happening. Mm-hmm. And what would it take? It would take adding an extra 16 or whatever many games, 14, 7 games, 8 games. How many games is there? However many.
13 when there's teams with buys normally.
So 13 games, 13. You would have to add 13 more refs and maybe add a little bit more technology, and you would have to hope that those refs are actually good at what they do as opposed to Alberto Riveron. Maybe get people that are ex-players involved that, hey, you got to learn the rules now. Here you go, ex-quarterbacks. Maybe it's like an Orlovsky, like a Hasselbeck. You got guys that know the game well, that don't want to be refs but can still help out the game. Have them sitting in there in a booth with all these TVs, and they just can go real quick, boom, boom, bang, boom, bang. Okay, yep. Right into the ref's ear before he has to jog 90 yards, go looking at 7-inch by 7-inch thing. Just shoot it right in his ear and go, hey, that was not a hold. Just go ahead and pick that up. That would expedite the game. That would make the calls hopefully be a little bit more accurate. You would have review on basically every single play, so you wouldn't have to deal with the overturn, the not overturn, the public scrutiny of the refs on the field getting it wrong, because the refs on the field would be getting it right the first time because they have a little bit of assistance, a little performance-enhancing assister up there in the booth, in the eyes in the sky never lie. I don't know why they don't do it. That could be an answer. That could be, literally, I think we just solved it. You're welcome, Roger Goodell. 11:23. Got to get to the phones. We got Mac in upstate New York. Wants to talk about the NFL is utilizing sensors on the tennis court. Good idea. I think tennis court's a little bit smaller than a football. I like it. Peyton in Pittsburgh, Ryan in Boca, Brian in New Jersey. We'll get to those and much more on the other side. You're listening to the Pat McAfee Show. We have a podcast that comes out every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, the Pat McAfee Show 2.0. It's a little bit deeper conversations with people, although that LeVar Arrington convo today was very similar to what a podcast conversation sounds like. We had a chance for 30 minutes to sit down and chat with a guy who's a world champion duck caller and also starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers this past Sunday night in Los Angeles, and it ended in one of the most electric fashions possible. All right, ladies and gentlemen from Sanford, just came flying on the pond right. Welcome back to the Pat McAfee Show. 11:28 and 20 seconds if you're keeping track at home here on the Eastern Standard Time of this Tuesday, October 15th. One AFC general manager says that Cam Newton would be picked up by at least 10 teams in the NFL if he was put on the trading block. With Kyle Allen continue to dominate and Christian McCaffrey becoming an MVP candidate, do you put Cam Newton back in the game and potentially ruin the little mojo they've got going since he's left with his Liz Frank injury? He's back. He's practicing. Who knows what they're going to do? They're going to have to make some real decisions. Here's our 5 landing spots that we have come upon. Tennessee Titans, because of what happened with Mariota Tannehill. That's pretty self-explanatory. I think the Titans become a good team if Cam Newton can play like Cam Newton played before it seemed as if he got his happiness sucked out of him by Von Miller in that Super Bowl. So if he goes to a new spot, has to prove himself to a new group of humans, has a chip on his shoulder, wants to save his legacy as an MVP candidate, as a Super Bowl quarterback, as a guy that can take over games, he could be great with the Tennessee Titans depending upon what they're looking to do. Plus with Vrabel as the coach, that kind of smash mouth style, that would fit very well for them. The Bengals is another place that he could potentially go to. That old Zach Taylor guy, I mean, I have no clue about him. I know nothing about him. I guess he's only called 5 games before this season. They hired him as a head coach. Now he's a full-time offensive coordinator. Andy Dalton had no shot. I watched that game a little bit this weekend. That Bengals team looks like that's a tough place to go. No indoor facility. Gets very cold. Food notoriously bad. Not a great place to go, I guess, but players go there and do well. Shout out Pac-Man. Shout out to Andy Dalton, who's a fan of the show. But I think those days are about numbered for Andy Dalton. Cam Newton going there could potentially expedite the process of them not being a terrible organization anymore. The Denver Broncos. Joe Flacco, who has been nothing short of elite since appearing on our podcast 2 Fridays ago. They have been undefeated. They have performed very well. I like Joe Flacco. Let's say Joe Flacco gets dinged up, though. What do the Broncos do? Maybe bring in old Cam Newton. And what a circle of life story that would be, since the Denver Broncos and Von Miller were potentially the team that stripped Cam Newton's happiness from him in that Super Bowl. If he was able to go out there and do well, a lot of quarterbacks who can do well in Denver will get welcomed back like the heroes that they are. Peyton Manning has a parade there, I think, every single day. It feels like Peyton Manning is in Denver every single weekend, as he should be. Took him to a couple of Super Bowls. That could be a place. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is his style good for Bruce Arians' offense? Bruce Arians is hucking that rock, bro. I mean, that's what Bruce Arians is doing. Cam Newton, I've never said he has a weak arm. I think he has a great arm. I don't know how he is as a passer because I don't think you get to see it enough here in recent history because he's either hurt or they're running or something's going on. Maybe Cam Newton goes to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, does well. In the landing spot that we think would be an instant game changer for the team that it involves. A team whose defense was being heralded as the next 2000 Ravens defense. A team going into the season, people were like, this team can do some real damage. This team was one kicker away, they say, one blocked kick, double doink kick away from potentially making a run last year. They're back this year. Quarterback gets hurt. Backup quarterback doesn't do great. If this guy was to land in the midway for the Chicago Bears, if Cam Newton was to become the Chicago Bears quarterback, I think the Chicago Bears become a better football team immediately. And I think that is a team you have to really think about if they were to shoot their shot with the Carolina Panthers. I'm not sure they have much to give because they gave away everything for Khalil Mack, but I'm not sure how much Carolina Panthers would have to get in return to get rid of him, because that's going to be quite a situation. We're not saying they're trading Cam Newton. We're saying if they were to trade Cam Newton, where they would go. Conversation came up in our 13-person discussion before the show on if he was to go to the Cowboys, do you think the Cowboys are better? So I put a poll to the people. I said, excuse me, if you're Jerry Jones and he's on the trading block, would you rather Cam Newton or Dak Prescott? And 58% of the people who voted Dak Prescott, we got 34,000 votes. What a fall for grace, by the way, for Cam Newton. Cam Newton was being talked about as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now a guy who has definitely struggled, who I guess is on the eve of getting a pretty rather large contract, who has not done well, blows him out of the water by 16 points. That's a wild thing right there. That's a wild thing for me. And the Cowboys fans have been coming after me for even posting the poll. I even said this is not my thoughts. This is just a thought. posting a poll. Cowboys fans love them some Dak Prescott, which I appreciate, I respect. He's going to have to win some games, though, because as soon as you pay him, let's say $84 million guaranteed, and he struggles just a little bit, you're all going to turn on him very quickly. And I think the Cowboys need to start doing better, and I hope Dak Prescott gets broken off. But, boy, we're forced to watch them, man, and I hope they become a good football team.
I think that poll just shows how far Cam has fallen and how bad he has looked the last 2 years.
He's looked bad, bro.
That many people would rather have Dak, who, I mean, Dak's average. Dak's looked average.
You're going to get buried for that.
I mean, he has.
I just want to let you know, like, I don't know if that was on camera or not, like if people saw your face there. These Cowboys fans love Dak Prescott, and I appreciate the fact that they love their quarterback, by the way. I appreciate the hell out of that. They stuck by Tony Romo for his bad times, his good times, and his bad times again. They welcome back Jason Witten with open arms. That Cowboys fan base is an incredible one, a loyal one. Jerry Jones is an incredible owner. He's been able to build up a franchise that has withstood the test of failure. They've remained a famous, popular team, even with all of their failures that they have had, because of how good an owner Jerry Jones is and how good of a franchise that Dallas Cowboys team is. But, man, they've been so average. If something doesn't give there with Jason Garrett, I got a call from John Daly yesterday. I think it was he's not happy. I don't think he's happy that I didn't answer. I think he's not happy with how I'm talking about the Cow. He loves the Dallas Cowboys and loves Jerry Jones. And yesterday I asked, did Jerry Jones lose his edge because he's just accepting mediocrity with this Jason Garrett thing and not even thinking about firing him? I would assume Jerry Jones potentially heard that and said, you tell that McAfee I didn't lose it. We'll find out. So is Dak a victim of circumstance here with an ever mediocre team? Maybe. I don't know. But to think that the question, even posing the question, made these Dallas Cowboys fans upset, to me is hilarious. Like, that is a hilarious thing to happen, and I hope they start winning for those Dallas Cowboys fans who deserve a team to be well and do well.
They're delusional. They're delusional Cowboys fans. It's how they've always been. It's how they always will be.
You should not say what you're saying.
Well, no, it's not what you're saying. It's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You're going to get killed for this.
I mean, I'm speaking the truth, so I shouldn't be killed.
People have been dying for the truth for a long time.
Good point. Killed for a lot less.
A long time.
You know what? If that's how I go out, that's how I go out.
Oh, very noble of you.
That's an admiral.
Very admiral.
Very admiral, Z?
Oh, yeah.
You know what would be?
You are right, though.
You know what would be interesting is maybe a guy like Andy Dalton in Dallas.
Yeah,
he went to TCU. He gets some weapons around him. I think he could.
Don't
think he could
even
perform
say
well
what
down
you
there.
just said right there. Are you kidding me right now?
Pat, yesterday on Get Up, they were asking, would you rather have Dak Prescott or Sam Darnold after that game on Sunday?
I mean, that's
and Greeny said, I would take Sam Darnold 10 times out of 10 or whatever. And did you see? He got ratioed on that tweet. He got ratioed on that thing. I appreciate and respect the hell out of these Cowboys fans. I really do. They are with them through and through because it's just been mediocre stuff here for a long time, and they are all in. They're just waiting for that team to bust through. They're just waiting for that team to go back to the glory days when they were just an unstoppable force. When the star on the helmet meant that when they arrived in your stadium, you were in for a long day. It was going to be tough to beat the Dallas Cowboys, a well-coached team, an energetic team, a team that at any given moment could win any given game. Dallas Cowboys show up in a lot of stadiums right now. Everybody knows it's going to happen. They're going to lose. They are probably going to lose. That's just the way it is. And I would assume you can't. If they're telling me that Dak's the only person playing good on the team, a lot of people tweeting me. Okay, so if Dak's playing good, Zeke rushed for 100 yards last week. The defense says we're beating ourselves. Whose desk does that fall upon? Whose desk does it fall upon? The head coach then? Is that what, if everybody's playing good? If everybody's playing good,
right,
and they're losing. And they're 29th in time of possession, 29th in field position, and 30th in turnovers. If everybody's playing good, Cowboys fans, all we want to know is whose fault is it then? That's all I want to know. If you can give me that answer, call in. 1-833-622-3331. It's 11:37. We got Rowan in Indianapolis after side. Akash from Vancouver, Canada. I forgot we were an international show. Shout out to Zone. Okay, too, the song. Remember, we have to play knockoff music strictly because we won't pay for the rights. Oh man. There's some guy There's some guy in the. Well, we personally cannot. $3 million.
USD?
That's interesting, too, because we are an international company. There's somebody in their truck right now, like a good old boy, driving his truck right now. Just got off the. Yeah, I got a bogey down there, bro. What the hell is this? I feel like I'm in one of them raves with one of them kids. We appreciate you all listening. This is the Pat McAfee Show. Welcome back to the Pat McAfee Show. It is 11:44, wrapping up hour 2 here. We have an incredible guest on the line, a man who was a 4-time Pro Bowler, an incredible quarterback, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Garcia. Jeff Garcia. Okay. Coming fresh out of a weight room. Jeff, what's going on, boss?
What's up, Pat? Hey, I figured this is the best place in the house to be able to do this interview, man.
I respect it a lot. For those that can't see him who are listening on the radio, he is literally sitting at a bench right now in his house, which is incredible. Jeff, thank you so much for the time. I'm sure you are dialed into the world that is the NFL right now as a very intelligent quarterback, a man who's been around the game a long time. These refs are the hot topic right now. I know they've always been bad, but it feels like as of late it's just gone to complete crap. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, there are some calls, especially you look at last night's game, that were pivotal in the outcome of that game. And it's too bad for Detroit because they played a hell of a football game, and then to have that taken away by two questionable calls in the last drive, calls throughout the game, and throughout the weekend where players are voicing their opinions. Players are pissed off because calls are going against them that shouldn't be called or are very questionable. And hey, we realize that the referee's job is a very difficult position out there on the field. They got to make calls within a split second of time, and the onus is on them. But, at that point in the game last night where it's a critical place in the game, you better be sure that you're seeing exactly what you're seeing in order to make that call. Otherwise, you let them play. You let them play at that point. It's too critical of a time to allow a team to get a first down based upon something that was, to me, very minor and actually shouldn't have even been called.
Isn't this interesting to think about, though? You talk about like quarterbacks and kickers and basketball players coming through in these clutch moments. What if the moments are just too big for the refs? Because it feels like in the spotlight in big-time positions, this year in particular, they've been making bad calls. Do you think that's potentially a factor, that these guys just don't have the clutch gene and they stink as refs in a big moment?
Yeah, hey, like I said, it's a difficult position to be put in, man. They got a lot of responsibility out there on the field to make judgment calls, and unfortunately, it just seems like they're making some bad ones as of late, especially.
Okay, so the 49ers look like they got a team this year. They absolutely look absolutely incredible right now. A lot of people remember you as this incredible quarterback that played in 3 different leagues, CFL, NFL, UFL, but as a 49er as well. What do you think about the 49ers and the NFC as a whole?
Yeah, they look good. They look strong right now. I think anytime you're able to create a great pass rush, that game is won in the trenches, man. If you have a good, solid offensive line, then you can control some things on the offensive side of the ball. You can run the football, then you can create off the run game with play action, movement with the quarterback, protect the quarterback. And on defense, the last few years they've struggled. And, a lot of pressure was being put on their defensive backfield. They were young. They added Richard Sherman last season. He helped out as a leader, but they were still exploiting certain parts of the defense because of their youth and inexperience. But now all of a sudden you get a pass rush. You get guys like Bosa and D Ford and coming off the edge. And then what they have working in the middle, the rotation that they have of 8 different players being fresh, stepping onto the field, and the fear that they strike into quarterbacks, the pressure that they're putting on quarterbacks, the time that they're forcing quarterbacks to get rid of the football has made everybody else better around them. They have a good group of young linebackers. They have a good group of young secondary players. Right now, they're just playing great team football and playing really well on the defensive side.
God, that's an incredible breakdown right there. You threw for 43,300 yards professionally in 3 different leagues. Right now, a lot of conversation about the XFL. The AAFL was a massive failure, I would assume, because the front office had no idea how to run a business. I don't think anybody's been paid from that league. It really didn't have a shot from the jump. But you've played in a couple different leagues now. What would it take for the XFL to really succeed in this entire thing, and do you think they will?
Well, I do really believe that there's a place for off-season football. And, the right tackle that started for the 49ers this past weekend played a handful of games in the AAF. He got 6 or 7 games, whatever it was. And not to say that made him that much more ready for the NFL, but he was a free agent signing. He had been signed as a free agent out of San Diego State, went on to Atlanta Falcons, was probably on their practice squad for a year, then played in the AAF, got at least 6 games of live play, battling at that tackle position. And then when the injury happened to McGlinchey, the kid stepped in and did an admirable job this past game, and partly because he had some of that experience. I really do believe that there's a place for what I would basically call a minor league system. You look at every professional league, hockey, basketball, baseball, they all have minor league systems developing young talent. You know, I came out of college, wasn't looked at, wasn't drafted, wasn't signed as a free agent, went to the Canadian Football League and honed my skill for 5 years. You know, Pat, when you come out of college, I mean, hell, you were an All-American and you were kicking, booming the ball. So, hey, you were maybe ahead of the grade at that point for yourself. But a lot of us aren't fully developed physically and mentally where we're capable of being when we come out at 22 years old. We're still learning a lot of things, still growing in a lot of ways. At 28, 29, when I came out of the NFL or out of the Canadian Football League, so much more mature, so much more ready to handle certain things. And so you look at the NFL, you look at the cuts coming out of training camp. Hey, there are 500 young men that are either rookies or second-year guys, third-year guys now being released, cut from a team, out on the sidewalk, out on the streets, not knowing what they're going to do. Well, there's not another league unless you go to play arena football or the Canadian Football League or go play in some leagues in Europe, which aren't high-caliber leagues. There's not anything for them to truly grow and to get that experience on the field. If the XFL can do it, and I'm part of a group that's also working on a league called the Freedom Football League, and it's headlined by Ricky Williams and a bunch of ex-NFL players.
Okay.
But the main thing here is the funding. If you don't have the money in place, like the Alliance Football League, they did not have their finances in place. If you don't have the funding in place and have a true business plan, game plan, you're going to struggle to make it work. There are players, though. There are players out there that just need that chance to develop. And hopefully the XFL can put a good plan together and start developing some of these players to where come regular season for the NFL, if they look at guys that have gotten that experience and that growth and that to make that jump.
Okay, so a person that gets talked about as coming into the league and being an absolute phenom. By the way, good luck with the Freedom Football League, and thanks for your take on the XFL. I think it's going to do well for a lot of people. I didn't think it had any chance. After listening to you, I'm happy to hear that there is a possibility. We only have a couple minutes here, but I'm excited to hear and intrigued to hear your answer on this. You were an athletic quarterback, guy that can move and throw. Patrick Mahomes has come into the NFL and took the world by storm. He has an injured ankle and hasn't looked the exact same, plus with the way defenses have been playing against the Chiefs and Andy Reid. How do you feel about Pat Mahomes' season going forward, and has he been broken? Have they broken the code of the Chiefs, the defenses?
Well, I don't think so. I think what's broken in Kansas City is their defense. You know, when you have a defense that can't stop anybody, that can't create field position opportunities or sudden change or anything like that, and it's always put on the offense. The onus is always put on Patrick Mahomes and that offense to be explosive. Eventually, teams are going to figure out ways to slow them down. They may not completely stop them, but they're going to slow them down. And yes, a banged up ankle and limiting his mobility, his agility, definitely takes away some of his game, but he's still smart enough to play from within the pocket and make great decisions, great throws from within the pocket. But what's broken is their defense, man. They need to pick up the pace on that side of the ball in order to help that team. And if they can't do that, teams are going to continue to march up and down the field and make it a track meet. And eventually they just wear that team out because offensively it's difficult to continue to put up 30-plus points a game every single weekend in the National Football League.
Agreed completely. Mr. Garcia, you were incredible in the NFL, 4-time Pro Bowler. I can't thank you enough for this conversation. You're an absolute electric spark right there. Mr. Garcia, good luck in your workout, and thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's get it, baby!
Let's go! Hey, real meathead there. I like Jeff Garcia. I had no idea what to expect there whenever he was booked. I'm very thankful he joined us. If you're on the phone, stay on the phones. We're going to take your calls, and they'll be on Thursday's podcast. We're very thankful for that, excited to do that. Andy Reid said our time of possession is way out of whack. Pat Mahomes is only on the field for 5 minutes in the second half. People would argue you got to run the ball more then. You got to focus on the run a little bit so your defense can get a break, because when you're scoring as fast as you can, great news, lighting up scoreboards, but the defense has to be back on the field. And if they can't get any stops and they're just getting worn out, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. Hopefully Andy Reid can figure that out, because that Chiefs team is a lot of fun to watch. But, boy, Indianapolis Colts and the Lions cracked the code, I think, and the Texans taking advantage of it. LeVar Arrington, Jeff Garcia, Alberto Riveron, Packers-Lions talk. I mean, we had a heater of a day today. It was a heater of a day. And the show is ending here in 40 seconds, but you can continue to listen to more incredible conversation with us and incredible Ducky Hodges, Devlin Hodges, quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers that started on Sunday night and won in Los Angeles. He is a hilarious individual. Pat McAfee Show 2.0 podcast, where all podcasts are. We're hopping on a flight to Palo Alto. We'll be coming to you live from San Francisco tomorrow morning with an incredible guest lineup, more takes, more fun. We can't thank you enough for going through this mental vacation with us on a daily basis. You've been listening to the Pat McAfee Show from Indianapolis, Indiana! Cheers. Let's have a day.
Both.